A millionaire CEO saw a little girl shivering, face to the wall, then he discovered the real reason. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin. It was a cold, gray afternoon in New York City, the kind of day when the city seems to be weighed down by the dull sky, where even the busiest streets feel a little emptier. As the tall buildings loomed over the sidewalk, one man walked alone, lost in his own thoughts. Michael Anderson, a millionaire CEO, was heading home after a long, exhausting day. Despite the wealth, the power, the influence he held in the business world, something was missing. He could feel it deep inside. His mind was always occupied with meetings, contracts, and numbers, but his heart had been empty for years. As he walked along the cold sidewalk, something caught his eye. There, sitting in the shadow of an alleyway, was a small figure, huddled against the brick wall. A little girl. Her clothes were torn and soaked from the rain, her face pale from the cold. She was so still, so silent, that Michael almost didn't notice her. But then, as he passed by, he heard her whisper, her voice trembling. "Please, don't hurt us." The words stopped him in his tracks. Michael's heart skipped a beat. He turned back, looking down at the little girl. Her eyes were wide with fear, and her small body shook from the cold. He took a step closer, his breath catching in his throat. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice full of concern. The girl didn't respond. Instead, she clutched something close to her chest, her tiny hands trembling. Michael knelt down beside her, trying to get a better look. She was so small, too small to be out here alone. Her shoes were barely hanging on, and her clothes were nothing more than rags. But it wasn't just the cold that made Michael's stomach turn. It was the look in her eyes. She was scared, really scared. "What's your name?" Michael asked, his voice gentle now. She didn't answer at first, but then she whispered again, "Please, don't take me back. I don't want to go back there." Her words were like a punch to Michael's chest. He felt his heart break for this little girl, sitting alone in the cold, with nowhere to go. He couldn't imagine what she had been through, but he knew one thing for sure: she didn't deserve to be out here, in this condition. Without thinking, Michael reached out and gently touched her shoulder. "You're safe now," he said, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. "I won't let anyone hurt you." The girl looked up at him, her wide eyes searching his face, as if trying to figure out if he was telling the truth. Michael could see the trust starting to build in her eyes, the fear beginning to fade just a little. He knew that whatever she had been through, whatever horrors she had faced, this was her chance for a new beginning. Michael gently picked her up, cradling her in his arms, as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's get you somewhere warm." And as they walked together, leaving the cold, empty street behind, Michael realized that for the first time in years, he felt alive again. He felt a spark of something he hadn't felt in so long: hope. A hope that perhaps, just perhaps, this little girl was the answer to the emptiness he had been carrying for so long. Asterisk, asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl, shivering, face to the wall. Then, he discovered the real reason. Asterisk, asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue the story. As Michael walked through the dark streets of New York, carrying the little girl in his arms, a strange sense of calm washed over him. The city, with its constant hum of noise, seemed to fade into the background. It was as if time had slowed down just for the two of them. He could feel the weight of her small body against him, her coldness seeping through his jacket. But he didn't mind. The girl, who had been so still, now shifted slightly in his arms, her face pressed against his chest. Michael's mind was racing. He had no idea who she was, where she came from, or why she was alone in the street. All he knew was that she needed help. She needed someone to take care of her. His car was parked a few blocks away, but instead of rushing to get her to safety, he walked slowly, his thoughts consumed by the image of her frail body and the fear he had seen in her eyes. The words she had whispered, "Please don't take me back," echoed in his mind. What had she been through? What kind of life had she known that made her so scared of the world around her? As they reached the car, Michael carefully placed her in the back seat, wrapping a blanket around her tiny body. He could see the exhaustion on her face, the way her eyelids fluttered, as if she were struggling to stay awake. But she was safe now, and that was all that mattered. Michael's driver, who had been waiting in the car, looked at the girl with concern but didn't question him. He simply nodded and drove off toward the nearest hospital. The city passed by in a blur, the lights flashing by as Michael held her hand gently, trying to reassure her. "You're safe," he whispered, although he wasn't sure if he was telling her or himself. The hospital's bright lights seemed to flicker as they pulled up. The doors opened, and the nurse at the front desk looked up, her expression shifting from routine professionalism to surprise when she saw the girl in Michael's arms. "What happened?" the nurse asked, her voice gentle but urgent. "She's been out in the cold," Michael said, his voice strained. "She's been through something. I don't know what, but she needs help. Please." The nurse nodded and quickly led them to a nearby room, where the girl was immediately checked for signs of hypothermia. Michael stood there, his mind still spinning. He couldn't get the image of the little girl's face out of his mind. The fear, the pleading in her eyes. What had happened to her? He couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed the beginning of something much bigger than he could understand. After what felt like an eternity, the nurse returned with the news that the girl was stable for now, though weak and malnourished. She was given fluids and blankets to warm her up, and the doctor had recommended she stay overnight for observation. Michael sat down in the chair next to her bed, watching her as she slept. Her tiny chest rose and fell with each shallow breath, and for the first time, in what seemed like forever, Michael allowed himself to breathe. The weight of the day, the pressure of his work, the loneliness that had followed him for years, it all seemed to fade away in that moment. He couldn't explain it, but this little girl had awakened something in him, something deep inside him that had been buried for so long, something he had almost forgotten existed. As he sat there, lost in thought, the girl stirred slightly. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, she looked around the room, disoriented. When her eyes met Michael's, she froze, her gaze intense, as if trying to understand who he was and why he was there. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Michael hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond. "My name is Michael," he said softly. "I'm here to help you." The girl looked at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then, in a quiet voice, she asked, "Are you going to take me back?" The question hit him like a ton of bricks. Michael's heart clenched, and he felt a surge of anger toward whoever had hurt her. "No," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I'm not going to take you back. You're safe now. For the first time since he had found her on the street, Michael felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. He wasn't sure where this journey would lead, but he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't going to leave her. Not now. Not ever. Asterisk. Asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl shivering, face to the wall. Then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk. Asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. As Michael sat by the hospital bed, watching the little girl sleep, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Her fragile body, the fear in her eyes, and the way she had clung to him, whispering words that still haunted him. Please don't take me back. He had no idea what that meant, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized there was something deeper to this than just a little girl lost in the streets. She had a past that made her terrified of being returned to wherever she had come from. The nurse had told him that she was malnourished, that her body was weak from hunger, and that she had likely been on the streets for days. But what troubled Michael more was the emotional toll this little girl had endured. What kind of life had she been living to make her so afraid? His thoughts were interrupted when the girl stirred. She opened her eyes slowly, looking around the room as if she were waking from a long, troubling dream. When her gaze met his, there was a flicker of recognition, followed by confusion. She looked at him for a long moment, then spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Are you real?" she asked. Michael wasn't sure how to answer. He smiled gently and nodded. "Yes, I'm real. I'm not going to hurt you." She stared at him for a moment, then looked away, pulling the blanket up to her chin as though she was trying to shield herself from the world. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You're at the hospital. You're safe now," Michael replied, trying to keep his voice calm. She didn't respond right away, but Michael could see her eyes darting around the room, searching for something, or maybe someone. "Is my mom here?" she finally asked, her voice small and full of hope. Michael's heart sank. He didn't have the answer she was hoping for, but he couldn't lie to her. He shook his head gently. "I'm sorry, sweetie. I don't think your mom is here, but I promise you, you're not alone anymore." The girl looked at him, her eyes wide and full of uncertainty. "I don't want to be alone," she whispered. "I know," Michael said softly, "but I'm here now, and I'll make sure you're never alone again." She looked at him with those big, innocent eyes, as if trying to figure out if she could trust him. Michael felt a lump form in his throat. This little girl, with no one else to turn to, was putting her faith in him. And somehow, in that moment, he realized that he was beginning to care for her. It wasn't just about helping her in this moment. It was about something bigger. Michael knew he couldn't just leave her in the hands of strangers, no matter how well-meaning they were. He needed to find out more about her, and he needed to do it fast. The girl was still looking at him, waiting for his next words. He reached out slowly and gently touched her hand, offering her the comfort he knew she needed. "What's your name, sweetie?" he asked. She hesitated, looking down at her hands. Then, after a long pause, she finally answered. "Ava," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Ava, that's a beautiful name," Michael said, his heart aching for her. "Do you have a last name, Ava?" She nodded, but then looked at him with a strange look in her eyes, as though unsure whether to share that piece of information. "I don't want to tell you," she said, her voice barely audible. Michael nodded, understanding. "That's okay, Ava. You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to. But if you ever feel ready, you can tell me. I'm here to help you." Ava didn't say anything in response. She simply curled up a little more, pulling the blanket tighter around her. Michael watched her, his mind racing with thoughts of how to help her, how to protect her. What kind of life had she been living? What was she running from? And most importantly, why was she so afraid to trust? As the hours passed, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that he had to do more than just keep her safe for the moment. He needed to get to the bottom of this, to figure out what had happened to Ava and what had led her to this point. But for now, he could only sit by her side, watching over her as she slept. The weight of the world seemed to hang over him, but there was something else too, a sense of purpose. Ava had come into his life for a reason, and no matter what it took, he was going to help her find her way to safety and peace. Asterisk. Asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl shivering, face to the wall. Then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk. Asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. The next few days were a blur for Michael as he tried to figure out what to do with Ava. The hospital had done their part, providing her with nourishment and warmth, but Michael knew that simply caring for her in the moment wasn't enough. There was something deeper here, a mystery he couldn't ignore. Every time he looked at Ava, he saw a flicker of fear in her eyes, as though she was waiting for something bad to happen. Her words, "Please don't take me back," kept echoing in his mind. It was as if she was trapped in some kind of nightmare, and Michael was the only one who could help her escape it. But how? How could he help a little girl who was so terrified, so broken? Michael knew he couldn't just throw money at the problem and make it go away. This wasn't about charity. It was about something more. It was about providing her with the safety and security she had never known. The thought kept him awake at night. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. One evening, as he sat at his desk in his penthouse apartment, going over documents, his phone buzzed with a message from his lawyer. The text was short, but it stopped Michael in his tracks. "I found something," it read. "You need to see this." Michael's heart skipped a beat. He had been digging into Ava's background, but all the legal channels had been slow to provide answers. What had his lawyer found? He quickly called the number and waited for the line to connect. "What did you find?" he asked urgently. "It's about the girl," the lawyer said. "Her name isn't Ava, it's Emily. She's been reported missing for 2 weeks. Her mother," the lawyer paused. "Her mother was found dead. It looks like she was murdered." Michael's blood ran cold. Murder? This little girl, this fragile child who had been sitting alone in the cold, was the daughter of a woman who had been murdered? The pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. No wonder Ava or Emily had been so scared. No wonder she had clung to him like a lifeline. She had been through something no child should ever have to experience. Michael's mind raced. If Emily's mother had been murdered, then who was responsible? And why had Emily been left alone in the streets? The answers to those questions were now in his hands, but with them came a new wave of responsibility. This was no longer just about helping a little girl. This was about justice. And Michael wasn't going to stop until he found out what had happened to Emily's mother and made sure that Emily was safe. The next day, Michael met with the police. He presented them with the information he had learned and offered his full cooperation in finding out what had happened to Emily's mother. The officers were surprised by his involvement, but they were also grateful for the information. They explained that they had been doing everything they could to track down the murderer, but the case had gone cold. No one had seen anything. No one had heard anything. It was as if the crime had been committed in the shadows, without a trace. Michael spent the next few days working closely with the authorities, helping them gather any clues they could find. Meanwhile, Emily had begun to open up to him in small ways. She told him bits and pieces about her life with her mother, about how they had lived in a small apartment on the edge of the city. She spoke of her mother's kindness, her warmth, and how she had always made her feel safe. But Emily also spoke of the fear that had crept into their lives. Her mother had been scared of something, someone, and Emily didn't know why. She told me to hide if anyone came to the door, Emily said one night, her voice barely above a whisper. She said I was never to open it for anyone, no matter what. Michael's heart broke as he listened to her words. It was clear that Emily's mother had been trying to protect her. But from what? Who had been threatening them? And why? Michael didn't have all the answers yet. But one thing was clear. Emily had survived the unthinkable. And now, it was his turn to protect her. Over the next few weeks, Michael dedicated himself fully to the investigation. He worked tirelessly with the police, following leads, reviewing security footage, and speaking with anyone who might know something. Slowly but surely, they began to piece together the truth. The person responsible for Emily's mother's death was someone from her past, a man who had once been close to the family but had turned dangerous. It turned out that Emily's mother had tried to escape from him, but she had failed. And now, Emily was the only one left to face the consequences. Michael's heart ached for the little girl who had been thrust into this nightmare, but he made a promise to her, a promise that no matter what, he would never let her go. He would keep her safe, and he would see that justice was served. For Emily, and for her mother. Asterisk, asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl, shivering, face to the wall, then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk, asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. Michael spent countless hours working with the police to track down the man responsible for Emily's mother's death. The more he learned, the more he realized just how deep this situation ran. The man they were looking for was not just any criminal. He was a former associate of Emily's mother, someone she had trusted and known for years. Before everything had fallen apart, Michael could feel the weight of the investigation pressing down on him. It wasn't just about finding justice for Emily's mother anymore. It was about keeping Emily safe and making sure that the man who had caused so much pain didn't get away with it. As the days passed, Michael kept his promise to Emily. He was there for her, comforting her when she had nightmares, and offering her reassurance when the world seemed like a dark place. He learned more about her past, how she and her mother had lived in constant fear of the man who was now the prime suspect. Emily had never known a life free of terror, always looking over her shoulder, never knowing when he would show up. Michael couldn't understand how anyone could do this to a child, to a mother trying to protect her daughter. But as the investigation moved forward, new details emerged. The man they were after, whose name was Thomas, had been trying to force Emily's mother into something dangerous, something that would have ruined their lives. She had tried to escape him, but it seemed that Thomas wasn't going to let them go so easily. Michael's blood boiled as he pieced together the story. It was a twisted mess of lies, manipulation, and violence. Thomas had thought that he could control them, that he could make Emily's mother his own, but she had fought back. She had protected her daughter at all costs, even at the risk of her own life. And now, Michael knew that he had to make sure that Thomas would never harm anyone again. As the investigation progressed, Michael became more involved. He wasn't just a businessman anymore. He was a man with a mission. He couldn't stand by and let Emily suffer any longer. He couldn't let her live in fear, not after everything she had been through. The police were doing their best to track down Thomas, but the trail was growing colder by the day. He had vanished, and no one knew where he was. Michael refused to give up. He knew that he had to do whatever it took to protect Emily. One night, while he was reviewing some documents at home, his phone rang. It was the police. They had found Thomas. He had been hiding in an abandoned building just outside the city. Michael's heart raced. This was it. The moment he had been waiting for. The moment when everything could be made right. The police had the situation under control, but Michael wasn't going to wait around. He knew that Thomas couldn't be allowed to slip through their fingers again. He drove to the location himself, his mind focused, his heart pounding. He arrived at the building, where the police were waiting. The scene was tense, the air thick with anticipation. The officers were preparing to enter the building. But Michael couldn't just stand there. He had to do something. He had to make sure that Thomas would never hurt anyone again. Michael told the officers he was going in. They tried to stop him, but Michael was determined. He had to be the one to confront the man who had terrorized Emily and her mother. As he entered the building, his senses were heightened. Every sound, every shadow, seemed amplified in the stillness. The only thing on his mind was finding Thomas and making sure he was held accountable for his actions. It didn't take long. He found Thomas in one of the rooms, hiding in the dark. Michael's presence startled him. For a moment, there was silence, just the two of them, facing each other. Michael's voice was steady, but filled with fury. "It's over," he said. "You're not going to hurt anyone else." Thomas looked at him with a mixture of anger and fear. "You don't know what you're dealing with," Thomas spat. "You have no idea what I've been through." Michael took a step forward, his eyes never leaving Thomas's. "I know exactly what you've done," he said coldly, "and I'm going to make sure you pay for it." The police arrived just in time to arrest Thomas. He was taken into custody, and Michael watched as the man who had caused so much pain was led away in handcuffs. Michael felt a sense of relief wash over him, but it was short-lived. There was still so much to do. There was still Emily, and there was still the aftermath of everything they had been through. Michael returned to the hospital, where Emily was waiting for him. When she saw him, her face lit up with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Is it over?" she asked softly. Michael nodded, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "It's over," he said. "You're safe now." Emily's eyes filled with tears. And for the first time, in what seemed like forever, Michael saw her smile genuinely, from the heart. It was a small victory, but it meant the world. Michael knew that this was just the beginning of Emily's journey toward healing, and he was going to be there every step of the way. Asterisk asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl, shivering, face to the wall. Then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. The days following Thomas's arrest were a whirlwind. Michael had kept his promise to Emily she was safe now, but her journey to healing had only just begun. Emily had been through so much in her short life, and though she was physically safe, emotionally, she was still very fragile. Michael knew this was not going to be an easy road, but he was committed to being there for her every step of the way. The first few nights after Thomas was arrested were tough for Emily. She couldn't sleep well, waking up frequently from nightmares, her small body trembling as she relived the trauma of her past. Michael stayed by her side, comforting her whenever she woke up. He wasn't sure if his presence helped, but he knew it was the only thing he could do. Slowly, over time, Emily began to trust him more. She started speaking about her mother more, sharing little memories, some happy, but most laced with sadness. Michael listened patiently, never pushing her to say anything she wasn't ready to share. He had learned from the professionals that trauma like hers couldn't be rushed, it had to be given space to heal. One evening, as they sat together in Michael's penthouse, Emily was unusually quiet. She had spent most of the day playing with some of the toys Michael had bought for her, but now she sat on the couch, staring out the window at the city below. Michael could tell something was on her mind. "What's on your mind, Emily?" he asked softly, not wanting to push her, but sensing that she needed to talk. Emily hesitated before speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. "I miss my mom," she said, her eyes downcast. "I don't know what happened to her. Why? She's not here anymore." Michael felt his heart tighten. Quote, he had known that Emily's mother's death had left a hole in her life, but hearing her speak about it so plainly made it all the more real. Michael put his arm around her, offering her the comfort of his presence. "I know you miss her," he said gently, "and it's okay to feel that way. Your mom loved you so much, and she did everything she could to protect you." Emily nodded, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "I didn't want her to be scared," she whispered. "I didn't want her to go away." Michael's heart broke at her words. She was just a little girl, yet she carried the weight of the world on her small shoulders. He pulled her close, holding her tightly. "You didn't do anything wrong, Emily. You were just a child, and your mom did everything she could to keep you safe. You're not alone anymore." As Michael comforted her, he realized just how much he had come to care for this little girl. She had changed his life in ways he never imagined possible. In the weeks that followed, Michael worked tirelessly to make sure Emily felt loved and supported. He enrolled her in therapy to help her process the trauma, and he arranged for a team of specialists to help her heal. But beyond that, he made sure to be there for her every single day. He took her to the park, helped her with her schoolwork, and even taught her how to ride a bicycle. Every small step felt like a victory, and Michael cherished each moment with her. One day, after several weeks of therapy, Emily came to Michael with a small, carefully folded piece of paper. "I made something for you," she said, her eyes shy but proud. Michael took the paper from her and opened it to find a drawing of a man and a little girl holding hands, with a big sun shining above them. The words, "Thank you," were written at the bottom in big, messy letters. Michael's heart swelled as he looked at the drawing. It wasn't just a picture. It was a symbol of her healing, her growth, and the trust she was beginning to place in him. "This is beautiful, Emily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much." Emily smiled, her face lighting up for the first time in what seemed like forever. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to both of them. Emily was starting to heal. And with Michael's help, she would continue to grow, to feel safe, and to begin to trust again. Michael knew the road ahead would be long. There would be challenges, setbacks, and days when it seemed like the past would never truly fade away. But he also knew one thing. He would never stop fighting for Emily, and he would never let her face the world alone again. Together, they would find their way, step by step, toward a brighter future. Asterisk, asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl shivering, face to the wall. Then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk, asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. A few months had passed since Michael had taken Emily in, and life had slowly started to take on a sense of normalcy. It wasn't easy, of course. Every day was a challenge. Emily still had her struggles, her moments of fear, and her lingering sadness. But Michael was determined to give her everything he could, and in return, Emily began to show signs of healing. She laughed more now, a sound that had once felt like a distant memory. She began to trust him, to confide in him about her mother, about her life before everything had changed. But Michael knew the hardest part of this journey was yet to come. Emily needed to know more about her past, about what had really happened to her mother. There were still unanswered questions, and Michael couldn't shake the feeling that he owed it to her to find those answers. He knew that part of her healing would come from understanding the truth. One afternoon, as they sat in the living room of his penthouse, Emily asked him a question that Michael had been dreading. "Why did my mom have to die?" Emily asked, her voice small, almost trembling. Michael felt his heart break for her. The pain in her voice was palpable, and he couldn't imagine the weight of the question she was carrying. "I don't know, sweetie," he replied softly, his own voice thick with emotion. "But I promise you this, your mom loved you. She did everything she could to keep you safe." Emily looked up at him, her big brown eyes filled with both innocence and pain. "But if she loved me, why did she have to go away?" she asked. Michael took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been preparing for. He had to tell her the truth, as painful as it was. "Your mom was trying to protect you from someone," he began. "There was a man, someone from her past, who hurt her, and he was trying to hurt both of you. But your mom was brave. She fought for you. She did everything she could to make sure you were safe." Emily sat silently, her fingers twisting the edge of the blanket she had wrapped around her. She didn't say anything for a long time, and Michael could see her processing the information. He wanted to say more, to comfort her further, but he knew that this was something she would have to come to terms with in her own time. After what felt like an eternity, Emily finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Did my mom know you?" she asked, looking up at him. Michael nodded slowly, his throat tight. "Yes," he said, his voice soft. "Your mom and I knew each other a long time ago. She was a good person, a very strong person." Emily's eyes brightened for a moment. "Did she like you?" she asked. Michael smiled sadly. "Yes," he said. "She liked me. She was a good friend, and I cared about her a lot." Emily's gaze dropped to her hands, her small fingers still fiddling with the blanket. "I wish I could have known her better," she said, almost to herself. Michael's heart clenched at her words. He wished the same. He wished Emily could have had more time with her mother, that they could have had the kind of memories that other children had with their parents. "I know, sweetie," he said gently, "but you still have memories of her, and you always will. She's a part of you, and nothing can take that away." Emily didn't say anything more, but Michael could see the small, almost imperceptible nod of her head as she processed everything. It was as if she was beginning to understand, at least in some way, the sacrifices her mother had made for her. Michael knew that this conversation had been important for Emily. It had been the first step toward closure, toward coming to terms with the loss she had suffered. But he also knew there was still much more for Emily to work through. She had a long road ahead of her, and so did he. The next few weeks were filled with small victories. Emily began to open up more about her past, talking about the things she had enjoyed before everything had fallen apart. She even began to share small bits about her mother's life that Michael had never known. They spent hours talking, and for the first time, Michael saw a glimmer of hope in Emily's eyes. She was starting to heal. It wasn't easy, and there were still difficult moments, but Michael felt confident that they were on the right path. And through it all, he was there for her. Every step of the way, he would be there, offering his support and his love. It wasn't just about protecting her anymore. It was about helping her find herself again, helping her rebuild the life that had been stolen from her. And that was something he would never stop fighting for. Asterisk, asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl shivering. Face to the wall then, he discovered the real reason. Asterisk, asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. Months passed, and Michael's life had been irrevocably changed by his decision to take Emily in. The little girl, who had once been a frightened and fragile soul, had begun to transform. Her laughter, although still shy, came more frequently now. She had started to trust again, something that had seemed impossible just months ago. But deep inside, Michael knew the journey wasn't over. He could see the scars left on her heart, the emotional wounds that needed time and care to heal. Michael had always been a man of action. He was used to solving problems, to making things right. But this situation was different. He couldn't just throw money at the problem, or apply his usual strategies to fix things. This wasn't a business deal or a contract negotiation. This was a little girl's future, her heart, and her well-being. One evening, as Michael was sitting with Emily in the living room, the peaceful silence was suddenly broken by the sound of her soft voice. "Do you think my mom would be proud of me?" she asked, her gaze fixed on the floor. Michael's heart skipped a beat. He had been waiting for this moment, but he wasn't sure if he was ready for it. "Of course she would," Michael said softly. "She would be proud of you for being so strong, for everything you've been through. Your mom loved you more than anything, Emily, and she wanted you to be safe, to be happy." Emily looked up at him, her brown eyes searching his face for the truth. "I miss her," she whispered. Michael's chest tightened at the raw pain in her voice. "I know, sweetie," he said, reaching out to take her hand. "I miss her too. But you know, she's always with you. She's in your heart, and no one can ever take that away." The words were easier to say than to feel. Michael had been trying to convince himself of the same thing, but the truth was, he couldn't fill the void left by Emily's mother. He couldn't be her mother, and he couldn't replace the love that she had lost. But what he could do was promise to take care of her, to be there when she needed someone, to give her the chance to heal. Emily nodded slowly, though the sadness still lingered in her eyes. She looked down at the picture she had drawn for Michael, the one that showed them both holding hands, standing in the sunshine. Michael smiled as he remembered the drawing, which now hung on the refrigerator. It was a symbol of everything they had been through, of how far Emily had come. The next morning, Michael woke up early. He had a new goal in mind. He had spent enough time waiting for answers, hoping the past would fix itself. It was time to take action again. He called his lawyer, arranged for a private investigator, and began digging deeper into Emily's mother's past. He knew that there were still unanswered questions about her death, and those questions needed to be answered. But as the days passed, Michael found himself questioning his own motives. Was it really justice he was after? Or was it guilt? The need to somehow right the wrongs that had been done to Emily's mother. He didn't have all the answers, but one thing was certain: he wasn't going to rest until he knew the truth. The investigation didn't take long. The more Michael uncovered, the more he realized how dangerous the man who had hurt Emily's mother really was. Thomas wasn't just a criminal. He was a predator who had manipulated and abused Emily's mother for years. He had used his power and influence to control her, to keep her trapped in a life of fear. And when she finally tried to escape, he had made sure she paid the price. But Michael also knew that revenge wouldn't bring Emily's mother back. It wouldn't fix the damage that had been done. What mattered now was protecting Emily, giving her a future free from the terror her mother had lived with. Michael made a promise to himself that day. He would stop Thomas from hurting anyone else, and he would do everything in his power to give Emily the life she deserved. Emily still had a long road ahead of her. The scars of her past would take time to heal. But Michael was there for her every step of the way. He would make sure she knew she wasn't alone anymore. He would help her find peace. And together, they would move forward. It wasn't going to be easy, and there would be setbacks. But Michael had learned something important through all of this: the power of love and the importance of being there for someone, no matter how difficult the journey. And as long as Emily needed him, he would be by her side. He wasn't just a millionaire CEO anymore. He was a father figure, a protector, and a friend. And nothing would ever change that. Asterisk. Asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl shivering, face to the wall. Then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk. Asterisk. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. As the weeks passed, Michael watched Emily grow stronger. Her confidence, once broken, was slowly returning. Each small step was a victory. From the first time she laughed freely at one of Michael's jokes, to the first time she played outside without looking over her shoulder, Emily was healing. But Michael knew the path ahead wouldn't always be smooth. Even as she started to feel more at ease, there were moments when the weight of her past would still come crashing down on her. One such moment came on a chilly Friday evening. Michael had just finished his workday, and he was preparing dinner when Emily came into the kitchen, looking troubled. Her eyes were distant, and there was a heaviness about her that he hadn't seen in a while. "What's wrong, sweetie?" he asked, his voice soft as he looked over at her. Emily hesitated, her hands fiddling with the hem of her sweater. "I had a dream about her," she said, her voice barely audible. "About my mom." Michael's heart ached at the mention of her mother. "Tell me about it, Emily." What happened in the dream? Emily took a deep breath, her eyes still clouded with sadness. I dreamed she was here, and she was mad at me. She said I should have been stronger, that I shouldn't have been scared. Michael's stomach dropped. He knew this moment would come eventually, the moment when Emily's grief would manifest in the form of guilt. He had heard many survivors of trauma express similar feelings, especially when they had lost someone they loved so much. Sweetheart, Michael began gently, your mom would never have said that to you. She was a strong woman, and she loved you more than anything. She didn't want you to be scared, and she didn't want you to carry any of the weight she had to bear. Emily looked at him, her eyes filling with tears. But I couldn't save her. I couldn't do anything. If I was braver. Michael knelt down to her level, his hands on her shoulders. Listen to me, Emily. You were just a little girl. You couldn't have saved her. She didn't want you to carry that. She wanted you to be safe. And that's what you are now. You didn't let her down. Emily sniffled, her face crumpling as the tears began to fall. I miss her so much, Michael. I don't want to forget her. But I don't know how to remember her without feeling so sad. Michael hugged her tightly, holding her close as she cried. He knew that this wasn't something that could be fixed in one conversation or one moment of comfort. Grief wasn't something you could just turn off or forget. It took time. And for Emily, it would take as long as it needed to. Michael stayed with her that evening, comforting her through her tears, offering her the space to grieve, and the assurance that it was okay to feel sad. The following days were a mix of progress and setbacks. Emily had moments of joy, like when she began drawing again, or when she went to a local park with Michael and played on the swings. But she also had moments when the sadness would wash over her, and Michael would find himself once again sitting beside her, holding her hand and reminding her that it was okay to feel the way she felt. One afternoon, as Michael was sitting at his desk, going through some papers, he received a call from the police. The investigation into the circumstances surrounding Emily's mother's death was still ongoing, but they had made a breakthrough. They had tracked down one of the last people to see Emily's mother alive, and the truth about what had happened was beginning to unravel. Michael felt his heart race as he listened to the officer explain the details. He knew that this was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when justice would be served. It wasn't just about bringing closure for Emily's mother anymore. It was about giving Emily a chance to move forward without the weight of unanswered questions hanging over her. As he hung up the phone, Michael looked over at Emily, who was sitting at the table, drawing quietly. He knew that the road ahead would still be difficult for her, but now, at least, there was hope. The truth was coming out, and that meant Emily could finally start to heal. He walked over to her, kneeling down beside her once more. Emily, he said softly, we're getting closer to finding out the truth about your mom. The people who hurt her won't hurt anyone else. Emily looked up at him, her eyes wide with curiosity. Do you think she'll be proud of me? She asked quietly. Michael smiled, his heart swelling with love for this brave little girl. I know she's proud of you, he said, and I'll make sure you always have everything you need to feel safe and loved. Emily nodded, her eyes filled with a quiet understanding. Michael knew that there would be many more difficult conversations ahead, but for now, they had made progress. Emily was healing, and he was right beside her, guiding her through the darkness, helping her find her way to the light. Together, they would face whatever came next, with courage and love, as a family. Asterisk, asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl shivering, face to the wall. Then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk, asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. As the weeks passed, Michael could feel the tension slowly ease from Emily's shoulders, but her journey was far from over. Every day she made progress. But it was slow, tiny victories, like when she agreed to visit the park for the first time without hesitating, or when she smiled at a picture of her mother and shared a happy memory. Michael celebrated those moments with her. But he also knew that Emily still had a long road ahead. One evening, as Michael was preparing dinner, Emily came into the kitchen, holding something small in her hands. "I found this," she said, her voice hesitant. She opened her hand to reveal a small, worn-out locket. It was old, the metal scratched and faded, but it still held a certain kind of beauty. Michael recognized it immediately. It was the same locket her mother used to wear. "Where did you find this?" Michael asked softly, kneeling down to her level. "I found it in my drawer. It must have fallen out of my mom's things," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly. "It was hers, wasn't it?" Michael nodded, his heart heavy. "Yes, sweetie, it was your mom's. She wore that locket all the time." Emily looked down at it, tracing the edges with her fingers. "I miss her," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael felt a lump form in his throat. He had known that this day would come, the day when Emily would confront the reality of her loss. "I know, Emily. I miss her too," Michael said softly, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "But you know, your mom loved you so much. That locket is a reminder of that love, and no matter what happens, she will always be with you." Emily clutched the locket to her chest, her eyes closing as she leaned into Michael's embrace. "Do you think she's still watching over me?" she asked, her voice full of longing. Michael smiled sadly. "I believe she is, and I think she would be so proud of you for being so strong." They sat in silence for a while, with Emily holding the locket tightly. Michael knew that this was just another step in Emily's healing process. Accepting the loss, holding on to the memories, and finding a way to move forward. The next morning, Michael made a decision. He knew that Emily needed closure, not just from the trauma she had experienced, but from the unanswered questions about her mother's death. He had been working closely with the police, and the investigation into Thomas was finally reaching its conclusion. Michael had already made it clear that he wouldn't rest until Thomas was held accountable for what he had done. But he also knew that Emily needed to understand what had really happened to her mother. So, he arranged for a meeting with the authorities, ensuring that Emily would be there when the final details were revealed. It was a difficult decision, but Michael believed it was important for Emily to have the full truth, to give her a chance to heal completely. The day of the meeting, Michael sat beside Emily, holding her hand tightly as they waited for the police to present their findings. Emily was nervous, her fingers fidgeting with the locket in her hand. Michael could feel her anxiety, but he also saw a determination in her eyes, a desire to know the truth, even if it hurt. When the officers arrived, they explained that they had gathered enough evidence to charge Thomas with the murder of Emily's mother. They had found the missing pieces of the puzzle: Thomas's motive, the circumstances surrounding the crime, and the final confrontation that had led to her mother's death. As they spoke, Michael could see Emily's face change. There was no shock she had known, on some level, that her mother's death had been a violent act. But hearing the details, hearing how it had happened, brought a flood of emotions she hadn't expected. Emily's grip on Michael's hand tightened, and he could feel her trembling beside him. "It wasn't your fault, Emily," Michael said softly, trying to offer comfort. "Your mom did everything she could to protect you. And now, we have justice." Thomas can't hurt anyone else. Emily nodded slowly, but Michael could see the sadness in her eyes. The truth, while it had brought closure, had also opened up a well of grief she hadn't been ready to face. The officers gave Emily a chance to ask questions, and she took it. She asked about the final moments of her mother's life, about what had happened before she was found. The officers answered as best as they could, but it wasn't easy for Emily to hear. Michael stayed close, offering support and comfort, even as he felt his own heart breaking for the pain Emily was going through. When the meeting ended, Michael took Emily back to the penthouse. The silence between them was heavy, filled with the weight of the truth they had just learned. Emily didn't say much, but Michael knew she was processing it in her own way. As they sat together, Emily placed the locket back around her neck. It was a small act, but it meant everything. She was ready to hold on to her mother's memory, to carry it with her, but she was also ready to move forward. Michael knew that this was a turning point for Emily. She had faced the truth, and now it was time for her to heal. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he was certain of one thing: no matter what happened, they would face it together. Michael would always be there for her, offering his love and support, helping her build the life she deserved. Asterisk. Asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl, shivering, face to the wall. Then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk. Asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. The months that followed brought a quiet peace to Michael and Emily's lives. After the truth about her mother's death came to light and justice had finally been served, there was a shift in the air, a sense of release, of something heavy being lifted from their shoulders. But healing is not something that happens overnight. For Emily, every day was a new challenge, a new opportunity to rebuild her sense of safety and trust. There were good days, where she laughed and played, and there were difficult ones, where memories crept in like unwelcome shadows. Michael stayed by her side through it all. He had made a promise to protect her, but more than that, he had made a silent vow to help her rediscover the simple joy of being a child again. It started with small things. Morning routines filled with pancakes and music instead of silence. Afternoons spent at the park, where Emily slowly began to play with other children. Evenings where they watched old movies together, her head resting on his shoulder as she drifted off to sleep. These were the moments that gave Michael hope, the small, quiet victories that told him she was beginning to heal. One evening, as the sun set over the skyline, painting the city in shades of orange and gold, Emily came running into the living room, holding a school form in her hand. "They're having a talent show next week," she said, her eyes wide with excitement. Michael looked up from his laptop, smiling. "A talent show, huh? What are you going to do?" Emily's face lit up as she held the paper close. "I want to sing," she said proudly. "It was my mom's favorite song. She used to sing it to me at night." Michael's heart tightened at her words. He knew how much that song meant to her, and he also knew how hard it would be for her to perform something so emotional. But he saw the determination in her eyes, the spark of courage that had been missing for so long. "That sounds like a wonderful idea," he said softly. "I think your mom would be really proud of you." Over the next few days, their home was filled with the sound of Emily's voice as she practiced. Her small, soft voice grew stronger with each passing day. Sometimes, she would stop and ask Michael if she sounded good, And every time, he would smile and tell her that she sounded perfect. On the night of the talent show, Michael sat in the audience, his heart pounding, as Emily took the stage. She looked nervous, clutching the microphone with both hands, her eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on him. He smiled and gave her a small nod, a silent message that she wasn't alone. The music began to play, and Emily took a deep breath. Her voice was shaky at first, but as the song went on, she found her rhythm. Her words filled the auditorium, pure and full of emotion. The room fell silent, every ear listening, every heart touched by the raw honesty in her voice. And when she finished, the audience erupted in applause. Emily smiled a real, genuine smile, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Michael saw the light in her eyes that had once been dimmed by pain. When she came running off the stage, she threw her arms around him. "I did it," she said, laughing through happy tears. Michael hugged her tightly. "You did, sweetheart. You were amazing. Your mom would be so proud of you." In that moment, Michael realized something profound. This was more than just a performance. It was a symbol of everything Emily had overcome: the fear, the trauma, the loneliness. She was finding her voice again, both literally and figuratively. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest they had known. Emily began to flourish in school, making new friends and embracing life with a newfound confidence. She started talking more about her dreams, how she wanted to be a singer one day, how she wanted to help other kids who had gone through hard times. And Michael found himself smiling more than he had in years. His home, once cold and empty, was now filled with laughter and light. But deep down, he also knew that Emily's healing had helped him too. For years, he had lived a life defined by success and wealth, but also by loneliness. Emily had reminded him what truly mattered: love, compassion, and the courage to care when it would have been easier to look away. One night, as he tucked Emily into bed, she looked up at him and said something that took his breath away. "Thank you for saving me, Michael," she whispered. Michael smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You saved me too, Emily," he said softly. "You really did." And as he turned off the light and watched her drift into sleep, he realized that their story wasn't one of tragedy anymore. It was one of redemption. Two broken hearts that had found healing in each other. Asterisk, asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl shivering, face to the wall. Then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk, asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. It had been nearly a year since Michael had taken Emily into his home, and while the pain of her past would never truly fade, she was beginning to live a life free from fear and loss. Emily had grown so much in that time. She smiled more, laughed more, and most importantly, trusted more. She was no longer the frightened girl who had been abandoned on the streets. With Michael's support, she had begun to embrace the world around her again. One Sunday afternoon, as they sat together in the living room, Emily asked, "Do you think I'll ever be completely happy again?" Her voice was soft, and Michael could hear the uncertainty in her words. It was the first time she had asked a question like that in months, and Michael knew it was a question that needed a thoughtful answer. He put down the book he was reading and looked at her. "I think happiness will look different for you now," he said gently. "But yes, I do believe you'll be happy again. It might take time, but I know you're strong enough to find it. Emily nodded slowly, but the worry didn't leave her face. Michael knew it wasn't just the question that was on her mind. It was the weight of the past that still held her back. It was the memories of her mother, of everything she had lost, that made her wonder if happiness was still possible. Sometimes I get scared, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. What if I forget her? What if I forget how much she loved me? Michael's heart ached. He understood the fear that gripped her heart. He had seen it many times, especially in the early days after they had brought her into his life. He knew it wasn't just about forgetting. It was about wanting to hold on to the memories that made her feel connected to the mother she had lost. You won't forget her, Emily, Michael said, his voice firm but kind. She's in your heart. She's part of you. And no matter where you go in life, you'll always carry that love with you. Emily looked up at him, her eyes filled with both hope and doubt. I want to believe that, she said quietly, but sometimes it feels like I'm forgetting her, like the memories are slipping away. Michael reached out, taking her hand in his. That's okay. You don't need to hold on to every detail of every memory to remember how much she loved you. The love you shared, the bond you had, that will always be there. Even if the details fade, the love never will. Emily smiled softly, the weight on her shoulders easing just a little. You really think so? She asked. Michael nodded. I know so. The conversation had left both of them in a reflective mood, but it had also been a breakthrough. Michael could see the burden of guilt, of fear, slowly lifting from Emily's heart. She was starting to realize that it was okay to let go of some of the pain and still hold on to the love. Over the next few weeks, Emily continued to thrive. She was excelling in school, making friends, and even took up new hobbies, like painting and playing the piano. It was clear that her world had expanded beyond the dark memories of her past. Michael had become not just a guardian, but a true father figure to her. He had stepped into the role with love, patience, and a commitment to helping her become the best version of herself. And in turn, Emily had started to see him not just as the man who had saved her, but as someone who truly cared for her, who loved her unconditionally. Then, one Friday afternoon, Michael received a call that changed everything. The police had received new information. Thomas, the man responsible for Emily's mother's death, had been released on bail. The legal system had found a technicality in the case that allowed him to walk free. Michael's blood ran cold. He had thought Thomas was behind bars for good. He had thought Emily was finally safe from the man who had caused so much destruction. But now, everything was in jeopardy. Emily was safe now, but Michael knew that her peace could be shattered once more. Thomas had been a constant presence in their lives for too long, and the thought of him being free again made Michael's stomach churn. Without thinking, he called Emily into the living room. Emily, he said, his voice tight. I need to talk to you about something important. Emily looked at him, her expression concerned. What's wrong? Michael paused, gathering his thoughts. I just found out that Thomas was released from jail, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Emily's face went pale. What? How? I thought he was in prison. Michael nodded, his expression grim. I thought so too, but there was a mistake, and now he's out. He watched as Emily processed the news. He could see the fear creeping back into her eyes. He wanted to reassure her, but he knew the truth. They weren't out of danger yet. We're going to be okay, Emily, Michael said firmly, walking over to her and kneeling down to her level. I won't let anything happen to you. We'll deal with this together. Emily looked up at him, her fear mixing with a newfound strength. I know you will, she said quietly. And in that moment, Michael realized that Emily had come a long way. She was no longer the scared little girl who had been abandoned in the street. She was strong. She was brave. And with Michael by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would fight for the future they both deserved. Asterisk, asterisk. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl shivering, face to the wall, then he discovered the real reason. Asterisk, asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. The days after the news of Thomas's release were filled with uncertainty, but Michael refused to let fear control their lives. He wasn't going to let Emily's past or Thomas's actions shatter the peace they had worked so hard to build. Together, they had come so far, and Michael knew they were stronger than the darkness that had once threatened to consume them. The police had informed Michael of every step they were taking to ensure Thomas would not harm anyone again. There was still a chance that Thomas could be brought back to jail with the new evidence. But for now, they had to be vigilant. Michael doubled down on his commitment to keep Emily safe, taking extra precautions and keeping their daily routines as normal as possible. Emily, despite her fears, stood beside him, showing a resilience that surprised even Michael. She was no longer the little girl who had shivered in fear on the streets, and Michael could see the strength that had always been inside her. She was learning how to protect herself emotionally, how to stand tall in the face of the unknown. As the weeks passed, Michael began to see that Emily was starting to look at the world with more hope than fear. She was still cautious, but she was also dreaming again. She started talking about her future, more how she wanted to become a singer, how she dreamed of using her voice to help others who had suffered. Michael couldn't have been prouder of her. She had taken the pain of her past and transformed it into something powerful, something that could inspire others. It was a reflection of her strength and the love that Michael had given her. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Emily turned to Michael with a thoughtful expression. "Michael," she said quietly, "I think I'm ready to move forward now." Michael paused, looking at her with pride. "What do you mean, sweetie?" he asked. Emily smiled softly, her eyes filled with determination. "I think I'm ready to let go of the fear. I'm ready to stop letting what happened control me. I want to live." Michael's heart swelled with emotion. She had made it. She had taken the biggest step of all, the decision to no longer let her past define her. She had found the courage to live again. "I'm so proud of you, Emily," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've come so far, and you've taught me more than you know. I'll always be here for you, no matter what happens." Emily looked at him, her face shining with a confidence that had once been absent. "And I'll always be here for you too," she replied. "You saved me, Michael. I'll never forget that." Michael smiled, his heart full of love for the girl who had become his daughter in every way that mattered. She had come into his life when he needed her most, and together, they had found healing, hope, and a new beginning. A few days later, Michael received a call from the police. They had successfully gathered enough evidence to send Thomas back to prison, where he belonged. The news brought a sense of relief, but it also confirmed what Michael had known all along: justice had finally been served. He had kept his promise to Emily, and now she could begin to truly heal, knowing that the man who had caused her and her mother so much pain would never be able to hurt anyone again. As Michael sat in his office, reflecting on everything that had happened, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. His life had been forever changed by the little girl he had taken in, and he had learned more about love, resilience, and family than he ever thought possible. Emily had shown him that the greatest gift was not wealth or success. It was the ability to open your heart, to give without expecting anything in return, and to love fiercely, even in the face of pain. In the end, Michael knew that he and Emily had created something stronger than just a home. They had created a family, and together, they would face whatever the future held, knowing that they had the strength to overcome anything. They had found their way out of the darkness and into the light, and that was all that mattered.